I'm trying to figure this out here. See.
Sure. So you should be able to see my screen, right?
No, I'm just it's bringing. Oh, yep. No, I can.
All right.
Perfect.
Perfect. So what I first like to do is this. I like to take the first couple minutes out to get to know you, get to know where you are in your studies and what you're hoping to get out of today. Like if you said to me, hey, Stu, I'm having a real hard time understanding freehold estates or less than freehold estates. So talk to me about what's going on. I know you're out in North Dakota. So like I said, just tell me a little bit about you, what's happening, and how I can help you out.
So, let's see. I started taking my Cook real estate courses back in about April, May.
All
Around
right.
there. So right now I have my test scheduled for Tuesday. I got my courses done about a month ago, a month and a half maybe, and I just started hitting it hard with Prep Agent.
All
Um,
right, great.
and the thing that I'm finding is it's just super hard to find a good, like I'll study, and one of the best ways that I learn is taking practice exams, and then the ones
Okay.
that I know I get right, and then the ones that I don't get right, I go back and I learn those, and then usually I learn from that. But it seems like everything that I've been studying, every time I get to the practice exam, it's just like not it's not helping on the practice exams, and it just seems like I keep on kind of bombing those when I take the master exam.
Sure.
Okay. So I've never been a super super good studier, super good test taker in school and such. So it's just kind of finding a good way to study, and B, to study the right things that are going to be on the exam. And obviously you have a way better idea of what's going to be on the exam than me. So
Yeah, and so I mean, those are things that a lot of people have struggles with, and they're like, look, what was that?
oh, sorry, I just said yep.
No, yeah. So it's so what happens is this: a lot of people have situations where they're like, look, I don't know how to even begin to tackle. Like that's one of the top questions that I usually get asked. They're like, Stu, I don't even know how to begin to tackle my my exam prep.
Right.
And let me ask you this. So you said your main way to study is the practice exams.
Yep.
And how long are you studying for?
Yeah, so I'm after working full time and stuff, I usually only study about 45 minutes a day.
That's not
Um,
bad. You know, that really isn't bad. So what I would tell you is this. 45 minutes, I'd probably say don't go. I always say this: don't go more than a good movie, right?
oh yeah.
So an hour 45, maybe that kind of stuff. Max, so you're not overdoing it with the studying. So that's good, okay? A lot of people usually have that problem where they overstudy, right?
Okay.
So it doesn't seem like you're overstudying, but it does seem like you're like, hey, I don't know what's going to be a good thing for me. So to really study. So let me say this though with the test. The test is very hard. It's not an easy test, and I always tell all my students, I'm like, look, the bottom line is, it is always a difficult test, and you don't want to get discouraged. I
Right.
think that's the biggest thing that I could tell you. That's the biggest takeaway, is to not get discouraged, because there's some people that have to take it 2 to 3 times. Look, I have some students that you know had to take it 8, 9 times. So it's something that, again, I wouldn't personally really put too much weight into, you know, the test, and in regards to whatchamacallit, in regards to pass fail, that kind of thing. And also too, don't put the kind of pressure on yourself to try to study too much. Like I said, I think you're studying the right amount of time. So, in regards to what material to study, right?
Yep.
I think a good study plan. I'm actually going to give you Cynthia's favorite study plan. So you're a prep agent member, right?
Yep. Here, can I just grab a notebook just from behind me real quick before?
Yeah, go ahead. Take your time, buddy.
All right.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right. So one thing that I think that Cynthia really likes, like if you were in a private lesson with her,
Yep.
and that's why I always try to be cognizant of the fact that like there's things that I usually don't steer towards or lean into.
Yep.
I think that actually you would probably do well with going through this. So the Prep Agent ebook, okay. Um, I think it's phenomenal. It's 83 pages, and if you go to like the bundle of rights, it has basically a small, quick little tab in there about what each thing is, and it's really pretty easy in regards to in regards to understanding the stuff. Like they give you quick little analogies, so I really personally like that, and I think it's really easy to get through. So I think that with your studies and everything that you're doing, that you should also try to incorporate that into it. I think that reading through this book might actually be a really good benefit for you. So
Okay.
that's one thing that I personally think is going to be a very, very good tool. The other
Yeah.
thing that I like to say is this, okay? The practice exams. I like the way that you're studying. I think that how you're going about tackling it is actually not a bad way to do it. I actually tell some of my students that, when you wake up in the morning, okay, what you want to do is do 10 to 15 questions, okay?
Mhm.
And then after you do the 10 to 15 questions, what you want to do is you want to then just basically write down from your questions like 5 to 6 things that you were like, hey, I'm unsure of that. Oh, I never heard of that. Even if you get a question right and one of the answers is like, something that you're like, I've never heard of that. Let me just see if that's a thing. Let me do some research. Let me see what's going on. That personally, in my opinion, I would be looking into doing that. So that would be like my afternoon 20 minutes, right? That's what I would do in the afternoon. Then what I would do from there is I would probably go ahead and so I would have like 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at lunchtime. Then dinner time, I would probably do another 20 minutes of questions. And then write down some of the things that I missed that I wasn't really sure of. And then at night before I go to bed, I'd research those things. So it's a combination of all that kind of stuff. So that's something that I would personally be doing if I were you.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that would be, I think, a good course of action. And also what's nice about that is it spreads your studying out throughout the day, and it gives you a lot of different things to do. Also, the other thing too, flashcards are great. I love doing the flashcards. I download the flashcards onto all my students' apps. Okay,
Okay.
and what I do is this. I just sit there and work through the flashcards sometimes. So that's really a good plan of attack as well. So I like that in addition to what you're already doing. So that's a good thing as well. All right.
Okay.
So don't think that's something that won't help you, because that's definitely something that doing the flashcards, because that's really learning your concepts out of context is what's going to help you pass.
Yeah.
That 100%, that's what's going to help you pass. Now, the other question that I have, okay, is this: how's your test anxiety? Are you nervous about the test? What's your thoughts there?
I mean, definitely kind of nervous. I'm already lined up with a brokerage, so it's really I have a lot weighing on getting it passed the first time or second time, but um, obviously ideally the first time. And then also when I was trying to get scheduled, it was like a month out from when I called to when I could actually get a date. So I just don't want it to be, fail it and then you have to wait another month. Then
Sure, sure.
it's
And
just kind of nerve wracking. But
so here's what I'm going to tell you. Um, and I totally get the whole nerves thing. Because I always tell my students, I'm like, yeah, I get that there's a lot of nerves that go into it, especially when you have a situation where, bottom line is this: you have what was I going to say? You have a situation where uh, basically you have things lined up and you're like, you want to start working, you want to, and also just like all the other things that you were saying, you want to start working, you want to start, getting into the business, you want to start doing, okay. But what happens is you're like, oh, I have like, you have that one hurdle ahead of you, which is, I got to get my license, I got to get. Situated with this. What I'll tell you is this: don't let the fact that you have the brokerage lined up, you have the test, you're going to be ready to take the test, you want to pass. Don't let that get into your head too much, okay?
yeah,
Because here's the thing. I work with celebrities, a lot of athletes, and some of the athletes that I work with in regards to, helping them find a home, is I work with a ton of baseball players. So what happens with the baseball players is this: a lot of times I've actually worked with people who've been in super high pressure situations. So I've had, people that have worked with me that have pitched, bottom of the ninth, Game 7, World Series. And I will tell you this. I asked them, I said, hey, what are you thinking of when it's high pressure situation, bottom of the ninth, Game 7, World Series? I was like, what are your thoughts? And they said, yeah, I'm not thinking that it's bottom of the seventh, Game 7, World Series. They said, I'm just not thinking about that. They said, and if I did think about that, you're like, I wouldn't be successful.
yeah,
So the one thing that you can't do is put that kind of pressure on you where you sit there and you go, oh man, I have a brokerage and I haven't been able to take the test. No. Just don't think about that. That kind of stuff. Just let it go from your head. You don't want to have that in your head. You don't want to be
yeah,
thinking that, because bottom line is, it won't do you any good. Okay.
got it. Yep,
So,
that makes total sense.
what they're thinking of is this, because I said to them, I said, what are you thinking of when you're doing that? They said, I'm thinking, hey, this is just like any other game. It's, there's nothing special about this. This is just like any other pitch. This is just like any other thing. And that's it. Okay.
Yeah,
So basically, this is a practice test for you. Okay.
right.
This is the equivalent of a practice test. Like, there's nothing special about this. There's nothing happening with this. It's just a thing. That's
Yep.
it. Nothing to it. I would not put much weight into it. I would not sit there and go, oh, it's a situation where, I gotta pass, I gotta do this. No. Don't. I would not think about that at all. Not a one thing. Okay.
Hey, got it. Got it.
So that would be my thought process there. When you're going to the testing center, what I would personally be doing is I would be listening to stand-up comedy on my way to the testing center. I would be listening to music that will put me in a good mood. I'm doing things like I'm not cramming before the test. I, I'm not sitting there doing any special things. I'm just, sitting there writing it out, just doing my thing. I'm clearing my head because here's the thing, you cannot control, okay? You cannot control what happens in the testing center, okay?
Mm.
Because here's the thing, you could get someone who's an absolute jerk who had the wrong, he had the wrong person piss them off this morning. You could have a situation where they're just absolutely rude to you. Like I have heard all of it from my students, and what I tell them all the time is this. I always say, manage your expectations going into that. Like, you
Okay.
control your mindset going into that. Okay, because here's the thing, you can't control how they, what your day is going to be like, what's going to happen, your reaction, all that. You can't control that, but what you can control, like I said, is your state of mind going into that situation. So that's something that I always tell people. I'm like, look, you could control that. So I always say, make sure that you have the best attitude going into it, first, before before you take the test. So that's my mindset there. That's what I always like to, tell my students to really focus on, is clearing their mind and trying to limit and mitigate the amount of pressure that you're putting on yourself. That's key. That
Yeah.
really is, in my opinion, that's key to being super successful at the test. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. That
So,
makes sense. Makes sense.
so that being said, okay, we've gone over a study plan for you. Okay. So you have a bunch of different things that you could choose from. So now when you sit down to study, you can sit there and go, okay, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do that. Okay. So you have things that you could study, okay, and things you could do when you're sitting there and trying to, go through your information. Okay. So what happens is this, you have somewhat of a game plan there, right? Because you have plenty of opportunities, plenty of things that you could be doing. So that's the first thing. And I think that was like one of the first things on your list, that you were like, hey, I want to make sure that I have a plan, right?
Yep.
So first and foremost, we do have a plan right now. Okay.
Yep.
And I think that is, like I said, super important to being successful. Now, that being said, okay, the other super important thing is making sure we know what kind of material to look out for.
Yep.
And here's the thing. What I like to do is I like to go through some of the material with my students, and I like to take some practice exams and see where you are in regards to your study. Okay.
Yep.
I like to see what's going on, what your concerns are, all that kind of stuff. So what I want to do is this. I want to take a practice exam with you. Okay. And
Yep.
that's how we're going to do the rest of our time together. Is we're going to answer some questions. We're going to sit here and see, what comes up in regards to the material, and we're going to use it as a springboard for ourselves, good, bad, and different. We're going to use this as an opportunity to see where you are with things, and see what areas of opportunity, like, oh, maybe you have to study more on contracts, maybe you have to focus more on laws of agency, stuff like that. And what we'll do is this. I want you to tell me what you think the answer is. Okay.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. I want you to tell me, okay, I think the answer is this. Okay. And then
Yep.
the second thing that I want you to do is, once you know what you think the answer is, okay, um, I want to know if there's anything that you're struggling with. So, like, if you sit there and say to me, oh, Stu, I'm really struggling between C and D on this one,
Yep.
I want to know that kind of stuff. I want to know where your troubles are, where the trials and tribulations are in regards to your learning. Okay. So let's take a look at the first question. All right, buddy?
Alrighty. So all of the options are covered by the Fair Housing Act, correct?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Civil Rights Act of 1866. What does that? Who does that cover as a protected class?
Is that
What's a
people?
protected class?
Is that like minorities, people of color?
It would be race. It would be race on that one. So you
Right.
want to that one you really want to focus in on the fact that that one's going to be race. Okay. So that's the answer right there in regards to what it would cover. Okay.
And that's of 1876, right?
1866. Okay.
1866.
1866. Yeah. Now, are there any exceptions to that law?
To this one here.
To the Civil Rights
Oh,
Act of 1866.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So and that's a famous question that they'll ask you. And here's the thing with fair housing, I would star that and I would tell you to really understand fair housing. Okay.
Okay.
Because that will be a source of many questions for you. Okay. That will be a source of many questions for you. Okay. That will hands down be an opportunity for you to truly succeed, because I think that personally the fair housing stuff, I actually think that it's pretty that it's pretty easy to understand it. And
Yep.
that's why I always tell people, I'm like, that's a low hanging fruit, because there's at least, like, as far as, because people always ask me, what is on the test do, what are some things I should look out for. And like a number one thing that I always tell people to look out for is, I always tell people to look out for fair housing, because I say easily that's about, like, I'd say, 4 to 5 questions. Easy.
Okay.
So let's look at the next one. So usury. Have you heard of this one yet?
Nope.
All right. Do you have a guess at what this might be?
I want to say being capable of multiple usage.
Okay. So this one, usury or usury laws, okay, have to do with charging an illegal amount of interest. Okay. So what happens is this: each state sets its own usury laws, meaning that what happens is they set what the amount of illegal interest is. Like, they're like, okay, this number right here would be considered illegal interest. Like, this is that's too high. Okay. So that is what usury is. Okay, it's charging an illegal amount of interest rate, and that's set by each of the states.
Okay. And that's just on just normal loans from the bank. Like, your banks can't charge more.
Well, here's what it is. That's on. I'll tell you this. It's on anything. So anything that has that would be charging interest. Any loan that would be charging interest is susceptible to usury laws. Okay. So that's what it is. So yes, it does have to do with mortgages. That is not an incorrect statement.
Okay, got it.
But the other thing that you could say about it is, you could say it does have to do with other, other loans as well. So let's go to the next one.
Make information available concerning the cost of credit.
Yeah, that's basically truth in lending right there, right? So tell me a little bit about Respa, because people usually get those two confused. So what is Respa?
I couldn't tell you what Respa is.
Okay. So RESPA stands for the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. Okay. And what it is it's basically, if TILA is, hey, you have to make the true cost of credit known, okay?
Yep.
RESPA is basically saying, hey, you have to make the true cost of settlement services known. So any settlement service, such as title insurance or lending or anything like that, any situation where there's going to be a settlement service involved, okay? Basically what they're saying is this. They're saying, look, you need to make sure that the consumer knows the true cost of those settlement services. Also, RESPA basically makes it illegal, okay, to accept and receive any kickbacks, okay? It makes it illegal to receive any type of kickback. So let me ask you this. What is a kickback?
So like if the real estate agent was like, hey, and this is just a guess. So if they said, hey, if you buy a house from me, I'll give you $500 or something back in your pocket for.
Okay, that's not. And here's the thing. I'll tell you this. That's not a bad guess. But let's tighten that up a little bit. Let's talk about what a kickback is. So, it's not when a real estate agent says, "Hey, if you buy a house with me, I'll do that," because there are certain states where you could actually offer a rebate, absolutely no problem whatsoever. Okay, you could give that client a rebate. Now, that being said, um, so let's talk about what a kickback is. So a kickback would be this. So I told you that RESPA has to do with settlement services, right? Um, and what happens is this. I always tell people settlement services are those attorneys, title companies. Basically, if it's a company that is needed to settle a real estate transaction, RESPA would apply to them, okay? RESPA would apply to those companies. Now, that being said, what happens with RESPA is this. A kickback would be, let's say I had a loan officer, okay? So someone who does mortgages, and actually I had this. I had a loan officer that every transaction that we would do, or every client that I would refer to her, okay,
Yep.
she would say to me this. She would send me these yummy, yummy, delicious cookies, okay? She would
Okay.
send me these yummy, delicious cookies and like $75, like really like expensive cookies. Like we're not talking like she sent me Pillsbury cookies. Like she spent me
Yeah.
cookies and she spent like almost $100 on cookies on me.
Oh yeah.
That's a kickback. Or let's say, I'm a big sports fan, and a lot of my people that work with me, if they come into my office, they know. They're like, "Oh, Stu, you're a really big sports fan." Like it's pretty obvious that I'm a big sports fan.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say someone came into my office and said, "Oh, I'll give you tickets to the whatchamacallit, to the Islanders game." Okay, that could be considered a kickback, because here's the thing. You're assuming that as a consumer, that the reason I'm recommending a service to you, the reason I'm recommending Bob the home inspector, is because I think the home inspector is good. Okay. And I'm not recommending him because, oh, he just gave me Islander tickets. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
So that's the situation there. That's what RESPA is in a nutshell. Okay. And and I always say that's the really down and dirty version of RESPA. So let's go to the next one.
Okay. So good. So severalty would just be one individual.
Okay. So you'd say an individual. Yeah, 100%. Now let me ask you this. What is like another famous one is joint tenancy. What is joint tenancy?
So joint tenancy is when there's two people who have it has to be a um, equally divided share of property. And when one of them dies, no matter what, their property goes to the other person. Their equity goes to the other person.
Yeah. I like that. Just so you know, I'll give you like another little caveat on that. Also has to do with it could be more than two individuals. So like it could be a set of siblings,
Yeah.
right? So it could be, a bunch of siblings that own a property together that, sit there and go, yeah, I really, we want to have rights of survivorship. So that's something that could definitely take place, could definitely happen. So that's a situation with joint tenancy. So let's go to the next one.
An alteration to land to make it more useful.
An alteration to land to make it more useful. Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay. So an alteration to land to make it more useful, okay, um, would probably not be, because here's the thing. A property improvement, again, would not necessarily be an alteration to the land. It usually means that there's some sort of, it was like a fence, there's a building, there's something being done to it, okay?
Okay.
And here's the thing too. Um, it's a situation where I don't really like this question that much, you know. But clearing, basically what this says is that it says alterations to land or a developer's preparations of a parcel, like grading, clearing, things like that. And I think that's what they're referring to with an alteration of land in this question.
Okay.
Okay. So an alteration to land, like if you just, sodded, that wouldn't be considered an improvement to the property, right?
Yeah. Got it. Yep.
So that
Yep.
would just be an alteration. It's not something that's necessarily going to be there, but a chicken coop permanently attached, right?
Yep.
That would be an improvement, okay?
Got it.
Even though you might think, look, some people might be reading this question and might be saying, that's not an improvement for me. Like my wife always says to me, I actually always ask my wife, I was like, oh, I'd love to get a chicken coop. And she always said to me, yeah, no, we're not getting a chicken coop. So
Right.
basically, some people might think that that's not an improvement, but that certainly is. So let's look at the next one.
Would lot and block be the answer?
So let me ask you this. What is lot and block?
Isn't lot and block when they take a whole section of land and then just divide it up into different parcels, or does that be?
No, so lot and block, here's what happens. That is a legal description of land. So what they're looking for is the least specific method of identifying real property. So,
Oh.
so watch this. The rectangular survey system, meets and bounds, and lot and block are all legal ways. Like they're super specific ways to identify the property. Okay.
Okay.
Super specific. So like you sit there, you're like, oh wow, I see that's a really specific way. So even with your definition in your head in regards to what you thought lot and block was, still that is a very specific way to identify it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I always suggest is this. I always say, make sure that you understand what the lot and block is, so that not necessarily what the lot and block is, but what that the street address is not considered a legal method of um, identifying property. So it is the least specific way to identify property. Okay, and The other ways, the rectangular survey, meets and bounds, and lot and block are all legal ways to identify property. So they would all be very specific. So
Got
let's
it.
go to the next one.
May present offers to the seller only.
So someone who exclusively represents the buyer, right? You're saying,
Oh. Yeah, that wouldn't be right then. I didn't think about that one, right? So
okay. So what do you think?
if I had to guess here, I'd say must deliver offers within 1 day.
Okay. So someone who represents the buyer is going to be able to present offers to the seller or the seller's agent. So here's what happens. So if I'm representing the buyer's my client, right?
Yep.
So the seller, okay, would be considered a customer. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I owe them only fair and honest dealing. I don't owe them any other duties. I don't have to do anything for them. Okay. Nothing, nada, not a thing. Okay. So what happens is this. Okay. You basically have no duties to them. So when it says you must deliver offers within to the seller within 1 day,
Yep.
you have absolutely no obligation to do that. You have to present your buyer's offers. So you may present offers to the seller because if there's no agent, then you would be presenting them directly to the seller, like a for sale by owner, something like that.
Okay.
Or to a seller's agent. Okay. So you'll be doing one of those two things where you're presenting offers to the seller or the seller's agent. Okay. And that's the situation there. So now let me ask you this. What are the fiduciary responsibilities that a agent owes to their client? So we just said that the buyer's the client, right?
Yep.
So what are the fiduciary responsibilities that that agent is going to owe the client?
I know there's an acronym for it, and I can't think of the acronym, but
Okay.
yeah,
I'll help you with this. You ready? So
yep.
it's either there's two acronyms that they typically use for fiduciary responsibilities. There's a cold, that's the one I like,
Okay, yep, that's the one.
or old car. Okay.
Okay.
And let me tell you what they both are. Okay, just so that you kind of get a feel. Like I said, I like a cold because I always say when you have a fiduciary relationship with somebody, you're close enough to them that you could catch a cold. That's what I always say. So
Okay.
it's the duty of accounting, which means that if you're handling money for them, you have to be responsible with that.
Okay.
The duty of care, okay? So basically, you have to be careful. You have to be responsible for them,
Okay.
okay? The duty of obedience, as long as it's lawful, you have to do what they ask you to do. The duty of loyalty, okay? You have to put their interests ahead of yourself. You have to keep confidential things that they say to you. And disclosure. Okay, so any information that you have, you must pass along to them. So with old car, it would be obedience, loyalty, disclosure. I call this confidentiality, okay, because what happens is we have accounting and then we have reasonable care. So they basically synonyms for one another, right?
Yep. Yep.
But it's just whatever you remember to be, because what I always tell students is this, pick a way that you remember it that works for you and run with that. Okay. So, and that's something else, the law of agency. You will get asked questions on that. That's probably another 3 or 4 questions on your exam. So I would definitely go over agency. So if you're looking for areas to cover, fair housing, agency, 2 big ones. Okay.
Got it.
So next one.
The one who communicated the seller's acceptance to the offer or of the offer to the buyer.
Yeah, I like that. Now let me ask you a question, okay? What happens, okay? What happens if seller's presented with an offer? You ready?
Okay.
Seller's presented with the offer and they sign the offer. Okay, they sign it, accept it, and put it in their desk drawer. Okay, so they literally signed it, put it in their desk drawer. They tell no one. What's the story with that offer? Is it accepted? Is it a contract? What's the story?
Well, yeah, it's accepted, and it wouldn't that be a non-voidable contract because it's signed by both parties, right?
So here's the situation with that. It's it, it is not a thing. It's not anything. Okay? Because the seller had not communicated, okay? Had not communicated the acceptance to to anyone. So if the seller signs it, okay, but they don't communicate their acceptance to anybody, it's not a thing.
Got it.
They have to communicate their acceptance. Okay, they
Okay.
have to do that. And I think that a lot of people forget that. They're like, oh no, they don't have to do that. No, they do. They have to make sure that they communicate that with someone, because otherwise, you know, um, otherwise what happens is this: you're going to run into a situation where you have um, an accepted offer, but no one knows. And if no one knows, there's no way that they could, you know, that they could hold someone's feet to the fire on that. So
Right. Right.
that's why they have to, just like in the last one where you said, hey, the person who communicated the acceptance is the one who that's the situation that it turns into a contract. Same thing with the question I just asked you. I just asked you it a different way.
Right.
So
Okay.
be confident in the knowledge that you have, because I think the knowledge is in there, right?
Right.
um, don't answer too quickly, so that you sit there, you're like, oh man, I think it's this. No, think through what the answer is. Think through the question. And I think a lot of people jump to an answer too quickly. I think that that's a common thing. Okay,
Yeah.
so don't jump to an answer too quickly before you're confident in the answer that you want to give. So let's go to the next one. So what do you think on this
For
one?
foreclosure.
Okay. Specific performance. So when there's an active sales contract in place, what
Oh,
happens is this: the buyer or the seller can force the other side to perform by using what is called a suit for specific performance. Okay, so a suit for specific performance would be, hey, you have to perform on this specific contract. Okay,
okay.
and a buyer or seller would have that option as a remedy to them. Okay, however, I will tell you who does not have a remedy to them as far as that's concerned, and that would be someone like a like a broker or a sales agent. They would not have the right to sue for specific performance. And also, something that's important to understand about specific performance: a buyer is much more likely to um, be successful in their suit for specific performance than a seller would be. Okay, so a buyer is going to have much more success in a specific performance suit than whatchamacallit, a seller would. Okay, so let's go to the next one.
So one more
Yeah,
question
go
with
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
So
Ask. No, ask the question.
what's the point of specific? I mean, why is that? I've never heard of that. Why can I be like, hey, you have to sell
Well,
your.
okay, so picture this. Picture this. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the sale of real estate.
Mhm.
And what happens is this: every home is specific, every home is unique.
Yep.
So what happens is this: you, if someone said to me, Stu, the seller doesn't want to sell anymore, would you be okay accepting something else? Um, no, I might not be, because that might be a situation where there isn't another home quite like that. Okay.
Okay.
So that's why specific performance basically does have, there isn't really another remedy for it, because the situation is this. You basically have a situation where you're like, yeah, I only want that home. You know, there isn't another home that I want. So that's why specific performance exists, because what happens is real estate has specificity to it. You know, not every home is easily substitutable with another home. You know, so that's why it's a remedy, because basically the courts feel like if everything has been met in the contract. So that means that every contingency's been met, there's no outstanding issues or concerns. Then both the buyer and the seller have the right to say, "Hey, you have to perform on this," right?
Okay.
So that's the whole thing. That's the whole situation there. They're basically saying they do have the right to tell the other party that you have to perform, you know.
Got it. So, but I couldn't go look at your house and then after I look at it and I like it and stuff, and then you're just like, oh, I actually don't want to sell it. I can't say nope. I can't. I couldn't file a suit for specific
Right. So here's what
performance.
it is.
We haven't performed.
Specific performance is a particular remedy for people who are in contract.
Okay. Yep. Got that.
Yep. So it doesn't have, so that's why, yeah, that's a good distinction. You can't just sit there and say, no, you have to sell to me. Okay.
Yep.
What happens is it has to already have a contract that has met all contingencies, right? So there's no outstanding conditions. Okay. And so there's been an offer and acceptance, there's a meeting of the minds, there's consideration. So we laid it all out there, right?
Yep.
And it's a remedy for people who are in contract. It's not a remedy for someone like the scenario you just laid out for me. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
you have to be in contract. Basically, it's to prevent having the rug pulled out from underneath you, like you have the moving truck already and then the seller goes, "Nah, I don't want to sell."
Right. Right.
That's basically what it's a remedy for. So let's look at this one.
So I'm stuck between equity and buy down.
Okay.
The reason I
Is it,
say equity is because obviously you're pumping equity into the house, but the reason I say buy down is because he's. I'm gonna say equity.
buy down? Okay. So a builder wants to offer financial assistance to prospective buyers. Okay. And let me just finish reading this because my screen went dark. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. A builder wants to offer financial assistance to prospective buyers. Okay. Um, and does not want to lower the price of the homes. Okay. Instead, the builder agrees to pay a lump sum in cash to the lender at closing so that the buyers will enjoy a lower interest rate. So whenever there's a situation where basically you have a lender who is basically, or a situation where they're going to buy down the interest rate is going to be lowered. Okay. That situation is referred to as a buy down. So you might see someone say buy down, refer to buy down points, things like that. So so what happens is it's not that they're getting equity,
Yeah.
right? Because and that's the thing. They're going to pay a lump sum in cash to the lender at closing to enjoy a lower interest rate. So that money that they're getting, they're not putting towards the principal, which would be equity, right?
Oh, they're just giving it to the bank to lower the
Look,
rate.
look, look. So watch this. Read this sentence. This sentence right here is the key. Instead, the builder agrees to pay a lump sum in cash, not towards the principal,
Yep.
to the
Yep.
lender so that the buyers enjoy a lower interest rate.
Got it.
That's a buy down. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Let's look at the next one.
So at closing, um, the easement always transfers with the title, but I think an easement has to be paid off before the
So,
transfer.
so what is
So
an easement? So what is
so
an
an
easement?
easement is like a lien on a, or no, sorry, no. An easement is a special permission with the property. So
Okay, so you're saying it's some sort of special permission. So is that does that have to do with money?
no, it'd be like if you have a house and my, or if you have land and my land is landlocked, and yours is the easiest access to the road, then I could
Okay.
file for an easement to get across your property. So um, I want to say the easement will transfer with the title, with the buyer's only choice being to terminate the purchase contract if the easement is an issue. No. Okay, yep. If the buyer's attorney sends a lis pendens with a notice of revocation, the easement will terminate upon. Because revocation would be if the easement isn't being used anymore, right?
Let's see. So here's the answer. The easement will transfer with the title, with the buyer's only choice being to terminate the purchase contract if the easement is an issue. So an easement is a right to use someone else's property. Okay.
Okay.
That passes with the property. So that was something that you did mention that is 1000% correct about an easement. Okay. It will pass with the property. Okay. Yes. 1,000,000%. Now, that being said, okay, that being said, It's the buyer doesn't really have a choice in the matter.
Okay.
The buyer doesn't really have a choice in the matter as to, hey, will I have this easement? Will I not have this easement? No, they don't really have an option in regards to their in regards to what happens with the easement, because it's attached to the property.
Yep.
So they could say, I don't want to buy the property, but there's not much else there as far as what they could do. Does that make
Got it.
sense?
So when they say terminate purchase contract if easement is an issue, then they would say, "Oh, I see this easement. I don't want to buy it anymore." Is what you're saying? That's
Right.
okay.
Basically, that's their only option,
Yeah.
because they can't change it. Okay, they
Right.
can't change it. So that's the situation there in regards to that. Okay,
Okay.
so let's keep going.
At closing. Damn it.
So the loan broker statement is basically detailed information about the loan, and you have to they have to get that one signed, 100%, 1,000,000%. Don't pass go, don't collect $200. They have to have that one signed. Also, I'll tell you, if you're looking for another area to sink your teeth into, financing. Okay, financing. Okay, that is a big one. So, next one.
The principle of substitution.
Yeah. So, can you explain to me this? Can you explain to me the principle of highest and best use?
No.
Okay. Let me explain highest and best use to you. You ready?
Yep.
So, what happens is this. If we're identifying a property, in order to understand, okay, what the best value of the property is going to be, here's what'll happen. The appraiser will consider the highest and best use for that property. So let me give you an example. Okay, I live near Manhattan. Okay, so in Manhattan or New York City, the Manhattan Public Library is smack dab in the middle, in the heart of New York City. Now, that property, if we were appraising it, let's say the city of New York said, Stu, please appraise the Manhattan Public Library. I would have to consider the highest and best use for that property. That being said, the highest and best use for that property would probably be that of whatchamacallit, probably putting a skyscraper there with penthouses and condominiums. Okay, not a public library smack dab in the heart of Manhattan. Right? So that would be an example of, hey, highest and best use currently isn't being used, but the highest and best use would be, that this property could be used for putting condominiums here and penthouses and skyscrapers. So I have to consider that in my appraisal, right? I have to consider that in my
Okay.
appraisal.
Gotcha.
So that's the situation there. Now, let me ask you this before we wrap up. Is there any other questions that you have for me? Because I actually think this was a pretty good, pretty productive one-on-one.
Right. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
So look, a couple things. You have a game plan, right?
Yep.
You know the areas to focus on, and literally go through the questions and kind of do exactly what we're doing. Like in this question, I would say, hey, if you don't know the principle of conformity, write that down. Use
Right.
that as something that you would research, and it just kind of changes up your approach a little bit in regards to what you're going to go about doing. So now, the other thing I want to ask you is this, and you could say no to me on this one, but sometimes people get a lot out of hearing these one-on-ones and being able to listen to what other people are experiencing and doing. And again, I thought that we had a lot of productive conversations here. Would you mind if I put this on our YouTube channel and shared this with other people who might be interested in taking a private lesson?
Yeah, no, it's no big deal.
All right, awesome, buddy.
Or
I,
is
I
that
appreciate it.
yeah, how many people do you, or is it like my face or is it just my
No,
voice?
no, 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 no. I don't put your face up there.
Oh,
They're
cool.
just
Yep.
gonna see my screen. They're just gonna see my screen with the
Oh,
questions.
yep. No, that's cool then. That's cool.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So again, like I said, I appreciate that. And if you need anything else, just let me know, all right, buddy?
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, not a problem. Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
Bye.